They do have a timeout. Decide not to use it. Curry, way downtown. Bang! Bang! Oh, what a shot from Curry!
Okay, guys, y'all destroyed the video yesterday. I don't know why YouTube wasn't really recommending the videos. I don't know why the impressions were down so much, but I think probably because y'all just smashed that like button over and over and over again on the last video. It looks like YouTube is starting to recommend our videos again. It looks like we are starting to get a pickup with impressions. So I want to give y'all a massive thank you for that. And because we are going back in the right direction, I think sometime this week, what I'm going to be doing is similar to what we did while I was in Florida, where I spent a night where I just went live and I sat here and I answered 10, 15 minutes worth of your fantasy basketball questions for everybody coming out to the live chat. I think we're probably going to do that sometime later this week, maybe try to get it around Wednesday or Thursday, where I just go live. I want to call it probably around 7, 8 p.m. EST. That way we can upload the video in the morning and we can have the live stream that night. So if you're wanting to come out to that live stream and get your question answered, make sure you go down there, subscribe to the channel. But most importantly, I'm sure y'all all know this by now, make sure you're hitting the bell next to the subscribe button. That way you get notified and you can come out to that live stream. But anyway, what we are going to be doing in this video is we are going to be going through and identifying some players that I want to trade for now that our fantasy basketball trade deadlines are on the horizon. Now, no, these are not all guys that were affected by the NBA trade deadline. We already went through and talked about the winners and talked about the losers from the trade deadline, so don't need to focus in on that too much. But let's dive into it and let's talk about a team that had a player rumored to be traded, yet he ends up staying, John Collins for the Atlanta Hawks. And here with John Collins, I really wasn't advising anybody to go out there and try to buy him over the past month or so because I was worried that this team was going to move on from him. I looked at the contract situation going, you know what? He is making no money at all this year. He's probably going to get a very large contract this offseason based on kind of how the market sits right now. So the Atlanta Hawks, this is a piece that they can move. If they don't view John Collins in their long-term plans, they are going to be able to maximize his value right now at the trade deadline by trading him. Yet instead, they go, you know what? We like John Collins. We're going to keep him here, most likely going to give him that contract this offseason. And if we look over the past 30 days, John Collins has been playing a very nice role in this Atlanta Hawks offense, where over the past 30 days, John Collins has played 13 games, and he's averaging 30 minutes a game, 57% from the field, 80% from the free throw line. So for those category formats where efficiency matters, you are perfectly fine. If anything, John Collins is even more appealing in those category leagues. We know that Collins, yes, isn't necessarily the best big man three-ball shooter in the league, but he can shoot the three. He's averaging close to 1.5 three-point shots made a game during this stretch. And his points scored, his rebounds are both up there with 21.5 points scored, close to 9 rebounds a game. With John Collins, you don't necessarily think of him as someone that's going to be an Andre Drummond type rebounder, so we're completely fine with 9. I will say the assists are just not going to be there at all. I mean, with Trae Young driving everything in terms of the offensive production for the Atlanta Hawks, there's not really going to be an opportunity for John Collins to rack up any assists, so you can't expect that. But also, defensive statistics are nice, and only 1 turnover a game to go along with this. So John Collins, I'll say that if you're playing in a points league, probably just want to stay neutral on him. Probably going to be fairly valued there. But if you're in a category league, I think John Collins is actually going to be someone that we are really going to try to target. Okay, so now let's go over to a player that was affected at the trade deadline. I did not mention him in the video, but y'all called me out on it. Y'all went to the YouTube comment section, and like y'all always do, you say, hey Mason, you forgot this guy. You need to talk about him. You need to get some discussion going. And this is because it looks like Robert Williams is probably going to see an uptick in his minutes played per game. I mean, right now, over the past 30 days, he's only been playing 22 minutes a night, but I mean, he has been great with the production he has given you in those 22 minutes, where the blocks are all the way up there at 3 blocks a game. The field goal percentage, 74%. We know Robert Williams not necessarily going to be someone putting up a ton of shots, so it's not going to impact you there, only averaging 10 points a game. But what's important here is he looks like discount Miles Turner. And if he ends up getting a bump up in minutes where you can go, hey, these 8 rebounds a game are probably going to go closer to 10 to 11 if he changes his 22 minutes play per game up there to 30. So with Robert Williams, going to be someone that's very exciting for a multitude of reasons. And I will say that it really doesn't matter if you're playing in a points league. It doesn't matter if you're playing in a category league. Robert Williams is going to be someone that I'm trying to trade for regardless. Now, I will say his free throw percentage is lackluster down there at 64% over the past 30 days. But we also understand that he is not going to the free throw line that often, so it's not going to hurt you that bad in that category, regardless of the league format you're playing in. All right, so now let's go over to another team that actually made a trade at the deadline, but it's not really going to affect this player I want to bring up. It's going to end up being Bam Adebayo, who, yes, this team acquires Victor Oladipo. Victor Oladipo should be seeing a decent amount of minutes played per game as well as a decent amount of field goal attempts per game. But with Bam Adebayo, this is going to be very similar to the John Collins that we discussed earlier. He is going to be the perfect player to buy in those category formats. Now, we've had a lot of people in the live streams in those premieres as of late, asking me, Mason, hey, what do you think about Bam? Is he going to be trending downwards with Victor Oladipo? It sounds like pretty much everybody thinks that he is going to be seeing a dip in production. And I'll say generally we agree. I think Bam Adebayo and Jimmy Butler are going to both see a small dip in their overall fantasy basketball output. But I think it's only going to be about 5%. I think it's going to be close to neutral with where these players are staying. And something we've talked about so often now is that the Miami Heat are in a perfect situation for your fantasy basketball playoffs, and that they're still climbing up the Eastern Conference. We know they started slowly due to COVID. We understand that they also play 4-4-4 games. So you want to be targeting these Heat players. With Victor Oladipo coming in, it's a little bit uncertain with how the guards are going to be faring. But with Bam Adebayo, even though he does generate a lot of offense through the pick and roll, I still think that he is going to be a decent trade target. If you look at his past 30 days, here you have him with close to 20 points a game, 9 rebounds. More importantly, 5 assists, though. That is something that we love to see. And why I'm saying that I would prefer him in category leagues over point leagues, though, is the fact that he's up there at 55% from the field, 82% from the free throw line. So Bam Adebayo is someone that we are going to be looking at. All right, so now let's pull up our next player that's going to be kind of team-specific here. I don't necessarily want to be telling absolutely everybody to go out there and trade for him. But let's bring up Shay Gilder-Alexander. Yes, suffering the foot injury. Yes, is out for an undisclosed amount of time. And like we always talk about with these teams that are going to be at the bottom of the standings, the Thunder have nothing to play for. We all know the crazy stat with how many draft picks they have over the next 7 years. But still here with Shay Gilder-Alexander, we've been having questions in the premieres as of late saying, hey, should I drop Shay? Are we going to get Shay back this season? To the point where people are just straight up willing to cut him off their rosters. And if that's where anybody in your league is evaluating Shay Gilder-Alexander, I mean, I am all in on trying to buy him on the low, specifically for those teams that are already locked into the fantasy basketball playoffs. Because what we talk about all the time is, for the fantasy basketball playoffs, what matters is you want upside. You're not playing for a safe floor. So say you make a trade right now for Shay Gilder-Alexander, you pay 25% of what you're hoping his production is. Just say you trade a player that has some name value but not necessarily the elite production. And then if Shay doesn't come back for the fantasy basketball playoffs, I mean, it sucks. You lost out on some value, but cut him, get a waiver wire guy, stream the waiver wire. We know that that's going to be a viable option during that stretch, just because half your league is not going to be looking and not going to be paying attention anymore. So that is the first thing you can do. And also with Shay Gilder-Alexander, we acknowledge the fact that if he does play, he is going to be an impact player for you. He is going to come in. He is going to make a difference. So if you can trade just a small rotational piece for that right now, if you're a team already locked into your fantasy basketball playoffs, I think that's something we do just because people are panicking. And when people panic, there's an opportunity to buy. All right, so now let's get to our next player that we are going to be pulling up. And people are panicking on him as well. This is going to be Kawhi Leonard. And here with Kawhi Leonard, I understand, guys. I know y'all are all going to be screaming, whether or not you're watching me on the phone, TV, computer, whatever it is. You're going to be saying, Mason, do you not know about his fantasy basketball playoff schedule? everybody is saying that right now to themselves because it's been talked about over and over and over and over and over again, to the point where if you just come out to a premiere and you just hang out in the live chat section, you see that everybody in there is straight up panicking on Kawhi Leonard. Every other question is, hey, what should I sell Kawhi Leonard for? What can I get for Kawhi Leonard? As if something massive has happened. And yes, fantasy basketball schedules matter. Like we're telling you to buy Bam Adebayo. That's not something you can ignore. But we've talked about time and time again the fact that with those fantasy basketball schedules, they matter as tiebreakers. Elite players are still going to be elite in the games that they play. So even if they play 2 games less over the 3-week stretch, you're not going to be just completely slashing their value by 75%. I mean, that's ridiculous here with Kawhi Leonard. I think that we could have named him a sell high about 3 weeks ago, maybe a month ago. But at this point, I think so many people are on the bandwagon of saying that you have to worry about Kawhi Leonard's playoff schedule that maybe the owner in your league is also petrified by this. Maybe you can go out there and let's pull up a list of guys that I would be willing to trade for Kawhi Leonard, because I know that it's not going to be just completely free. You're going to have to give up something. But say you can go through here, say you can trade a player like Jamal Murray for Kawhi Leonard. That's something that I would love to do. And obviously this isn't going to happen in every single league. You're going to have to go league by league, feeling what the Kawhi owner is thinking about his fantasy basketball playoff schedule. If you could go and trade a Jason Tatum, that's also something I would love to do, especially with Evan Fournier coming in and taking a few shots away from the wing players in that rotation. So yeah, Kawhi Leonard, I understand the fantasy basketball schedule, guys. You don't need to be yelling at me about it, but still, I think too many people are making this too big of a deal. All right, so now let's go through and let's pull up a player that I talked about buying a few videos ago, but I want to bring him up yet again. This is going to be Terry Rozier, who has really stepped up his game since LaMelo Ball has gone.
He's back
now,
on the floor.
Yes, LaMelo Ball is out for the year.
Malik has been the cock of the walk so
and here,
far.
Terry Rozier now slides from a player that was a scoring option, someone that was going to close out
Played
games
here
for
4 years,
team,
then 5
to
more years
someone
after
that's
this. So
going to
9
be
total.
asked to
Likes
generate
it for the Heat.
offense, someone that's going to be asked to dish out dimes.
Rozier left
So
wide
you're
open.
going to be expecting
Wow.
the field goal
Good
attempts
thing
to
he
go
didn't
up.
have a
You're also
goal.
going to be expecting
Vincent
the
just missed that
assists,
shot.
overall minutes played go up.
That's a big blow
Now,
for the Heat
obviously,
if Nunn is not able.
Maybe hit to what happened with LaMelo Ball is maybe a little bit more willing to raise his price on Terry. But if you can go in and if you can get what his price would have been 2 weeks ago, if that's possible at all, that's something that you're going to want to do. All right, so now let's get our last player up here. Someone that people are a little bit discouraged by with the fact that we've had Kyle Lowry coming back to the Toronto Raptors. But Fred VanVleet, let's bring him up. And I understand, guys, Kyle Lowry coming back does not help him in the slightest. But if you look at Fred VanVleet over the past 30 days, he's played 7 games. And in those games, he's played 37.6 minutes a game. Now, that is absolutely absurd. And the field goal percentage is at such a low mark where we go, there's no way it stays this low the entire year. I mean, he is shooting 36% from the field. So what we are going to find is I bet we are going to see him progress to the mean just slightly with making a little bit more of those shots, a little bit more of them falling in. And when that happens, if he continues to put up this many shots with this many minutes played, I mean, he's just going to be a stud. It doesn't matter if Kyle Lowry is there or not. I don't think Norman Powell leaving the situation impacts it too much, but still, Fred VanVleet, someone I'm going to want to look to acquire. All right, now, thank you guys. I really hope y'all enjoyed this video. I really hope y'all got something from it. As always, go down there, drop a like, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel. And yeah, thank you for everybody coming out to the premiere. I hope I was able to get to your question. And I'll see y'all hopefully in the live stream later this week.